Good morning, everybody. Can you hear me? Excellent. This morning, our speaker is Dokai Georgesen. He started practicing in 1974 with Dainin Katagiri Roshi. He was ordained in 1984 and transmitted by Katagiri Roshi in 1989. He's been the head teacher at Hokyoji since 2003, and we're very happy to have him speak today to us.
Thank you, Kyoku. And I'll ask, is everyone hearing me okay? Okay. All right, here we go. Then I'm going to talk today from a passage in a book edited by Andrea Martin called The Light That Shines Through Infinity. And this section, well, I'm not going to go into it, but it's a subsection of another chapter, and it's the subsection is titled Untangling Knots. And as I began to study this a little bit, I began to think, well, what's a knot? What is a knot? And I recently read a book that really exalted the presence of trees in our world. And the first thing I thought of was a knot in a tree. And I thought trees were here long before human beings were. And maybe human beings started noticing a knot in a tree and wondered, what was that about? Well, scientifically, it's, briefly speaking, I'm not going into the whole science, but it was about a branch or a limb being there that fell off. And then the tree did something to protect itself from that limb falling off, like making that area more durable. Because we all know if you're sawing through a piece of wood and you hit a knot, something's going to happen that's going to make it more difficult to get through. That's pretty common knowledge. However, that knot served a function for the tree. It protected it from because when the branch falls off, it's vulnerable in that spot. So I'm sure early human beings began to see that or whatever. And maybe they made analogies. Now, the knot that Katagiri Roshi is going to be talking about is like tangled thread, the knot of tangled thread, not the knot on a tree. But I can't help but think that knots got their first meaning from trees. I don't have any evidence to support that, but that's just my intuitive thinking. And well, I researched a little bit because in this article, or this chapter, subsection of a chapter, the essential message is that we can't avoid knots in our lives, which is another metaphor for something. We don't know that actually something is tied up, like a knot in our bodies, the same way it is like tangled in tangled thread or a knot in a tree. They don't have the same biological or origination. Um, However, there's a metaphor that strikes us quite deeply about this. So I kind of reflected on a bit, and I kind of looked up knots, and I didn't find everything I wanted to find, but I did find something kind of interesting. It was about knots and kind of the spiritual significance of knots. So, okay, this knot is mainly, this person's talking mainly about um, thread kind of knots, I believe. I don't have I just found it online. I didn't write down the author. So the person says the tighter the knot, the stronger it is, reflecting our ability to endure hardships and challenges in life. So what I think this means is at some point in our life, we experience some kind of a hardship. Way back when. I mean, it could have been when we were uh, a month and a half old, or even before we're born, perhaps. Uh, but certainly after we're born, we develop knots to protect ourselves. We make something hard to protect ourselves from the uncertainties and things that are fearful in life that can come toward us and that might harm us. So the knot embodies persistence. Persistence means, okay, we're going to keep going, even though we hit a rough spot. We'll we'll get a knot there. We'll fix it when we won't, it won't get into us again. Kind of like that. So knots have been seen as powerful symbols of protection and security throughout history and across many cultures. Um, so the next thing this um, this person writing says, I'll just read a little bit, is complexities and entanglements. In spiritual symbolism, the knot embodies the concept of complexities and entanglements. They have long served as a representation of the intricate twists and turns of life's journey, encapsulating the challenges, decisions, and dilemmas we face. However, just as a knot can be securely secured, it can also become entangled and difficult to undo. This serves as a metaphor for the complexities of human relationships, situations, and even personal internal struggles. Just as a knot can be undone with patience and perseverance, the entanglements of our lives can also be resolved. Thus, knots symbolize not only the challenges we face, but also the potential for resolution and growth. So that's just a little background into knots before let's start looking now at what Katagiri Roshi says about untangling knots. Human life is kind of like a bunch of tangled thread. The pure energy of life arises as the incipient moment. But in the second moment, something happens. Now let's just look at that sentence for a little bit and see if we actually believe it. Is it true? Because it says quite a lot, actually. It says quite a lot, and it just might kind of float by us. Well, okay, that's interesting. But let's look at it. Human life is like a bunch of tangled thread. Now, I don't think we would have an issue with that. I think we can resonate with that one without, going into a lot of detail. I just went through some detail about it. I think we can, because yeah, I can experience that as a metaphor that seems true. However, the next thing he says, the pure energy of life arises as the incipient moment. Well, what does that mean? Really, what does that mean? The pure energy of life. Now, what's that? What's the pure energy of life? Well, we don't know what that is. He's trying to say something about something, and he's using these words, but we don't know what the pure energy of life is. It's not something we can know. It just arises. And we all know what that is. We all know what that is. And the minute we try to describe it, it misses the mark. But it's coming up constantly. And what I really appreciate about this sentence is he says, the pure energy of life arises as the incipient moment, not at the incipient moment. There's not just one incipient moment. There's thousands, there's millions, billions of incipient moments. That's why he says as the incipient moment. You know, every day, maybe we have 10,000 incipient moments. I don't know. Maybe we're not aware of them. And sometimes, you know, if we're in sesshin or something like that, we just might get like an incipient moment that seems pretty big, but it's not any bigger than those other incipient moments. It's just that we see into it more clearly than we usually do because our minds have settled down from some of the things I'll talk about in just a few 1 minute or two. So then he says, so let's just keep that in mind. Billions and millions of incipient moments arising all through our lives. Sometimes we notice them and sometimes we don't. But in the second moment, something happens. So right after that incipient moment occurs, something changes, let's say, for us under usual conditions. And what he says about that is all of a sudden that energy is twisted. It gets twisted. Lots of threads are tangled into knots and many problems come up. And he lists these: pain, suffering, emotions, and difficulties with human relations. Let me list a few more. Now, when he says these, well, I mean, 1, 2, 3, 4. But when he lists 4, he means everything, all the suffering that comes up in our lives. He's just not saying these 4. He's trying to cover all the bases of human unsatisfactoriness that arises. Here's a few more. Buddha kind of listed these out in another sutra. Sloth, torpor, doubts, hatred, inattention, inertia, excessive energy, fear, elation. These aren't just all negative things, but we get like extremely elated sometimes. This is a kind of a hindrance for us. A longing for something. These are things. A lack, not only excessive energy, but a lack of energy. A perception of diversity, which means we're thinking things are different. And of course, these days we try to practice being aware of diversity. So I'm not saying, you know, that's bad, but in a certain way we diversify, you, me, as we're separate, you know, we're universally separate things existing. But that's not true at the bottom of everything. And the last one he says is excessive meditation as a hindrance. So let's keep that in mind. So then Katagiri Roshi says, we cannot escape this human situation. So we're all in it. We're all in it together. We all know what this is. It's just our human condition. We can't escape it. We're born into it as human beings. That comes with the territory. with human beings. So what do we do? Well, we have to handle the nuts. We have to handle them and take care of them. How? And then he says, it's not so simple. It's not so simple. Um, he uses this phrase quite frequently through all of his talks. It's either not so simple or it's not so easy, he says. One of those two things, constantly, almost about everything he teaches. A knot is created by many conditions. Your life, others' lives, nature, cause and effect. It's very complicated. You cannot understand your life only in terms of your own ideas, emotions, feelings, and the narrow telescope of human knowledge. So that's how we try to handle our knots, you know, trying to figure out where do they come from? Why does it? It shouldn't be happening to me. I'm 74 years old. I've been practicing Zen for 50 years. Why do I get upset when I'm trying to cancel a subscription to something and it takes me out all morning? It should not be this hard to do. Something from outside is making this, it's coming into my life. Somebody's manipulating me that they do not want me to cancel this subscription no matter what. However, so that's my thinking. This should not be happening to me. This should not be happening to me. Well, that's a knot. That's a knot. Thinking somehow the pain and suffering we experience should not be happening. Well, maybe there's a way in which it shouldn't, but there's nothing we can do about that. It is happening. So we just have to deal with it straightforwardly. Now, I still haven't figured out how to do that in canceling a subscription, but anyway, there's other things that I can do. You know, like someone getting really, really mad at me. I can handle that. Well, most of the time. So he goes on to say, if you handle your life only in terms of duality, that means someone's trying to get me mad, something like that. Irritation always follows, and you create more problems. Now, let's just use that example of canceling a subscription, trying to, we'll go back to that for a little bit. So if I start to get really irritated, which I will, then more problems happen. I start imagining the whole world is against me. But just canceling a subscription doesn't mean the whole world is against you, really. If we can just see it for what it is. So he says, so be careful, be patient. Don't deal with a problem quickly with a short temper. Hold it gently and think carefully what to do. Now, this next sentence could be challenging for us to understand, so we might stop a minute and examine it. Before you see a problem, your life is already working in the big scale of the self, the Dharma world where all beings are living together in peace and harmony. Now that might be challenging for us to believe. But it's before, we see a problem. We're there all together, living in the same world. And essentially, there's a peace and harmony beneath all of our problems with each other. Sometimes we realize this as we get older, and maybe as we're really, really approaching the end of our lives. It's like we see, all those things you got upset about. Were they really, was it really that necessary to get all that upset about them? We might ask ourselves those questions. And even after we resolve, like I did get this subscription canceled that I was having so much problem with last week. And once it's over, yeah, why did I have to get so upset, about it? I mean, it took me the whole morning to work through that. Okay, so here's this next thing. Everything in our dualistic human world is nothing but a single Buddha. So we have to take care of all beings as Buddha. That means all beings. This doesn't mean human beings. It means the beings of our frustration, the anger. That's a being. The anger inside of myself. That's a being. That's a being there. The disappointment. That's a being that's arising. These are all beings, not just uh, you know things that we can really attribute that have life to them, like a plant or a tree or a human being or a bug or something like that. It's everything is a being, inanimate or animate. There's a whole lecture about that by animate and inanimate. Not by Katagiri, but by another famous Zen person. So we have to take care of all beings as Buddha. The grass in the field is Buddha, your thoughts and emotions are Buddha, and you are Buddha. So when you face a problem, first accept your life as Buddha and take best care of your knotted life as Buddha. How? Accepting and taking care of your knotted life as Buddha means okay, this is the big point. Accepting and taking care of your knotted life as Buddha means you accept full responsibility for your life. No excuses. This is the point we have to constantly surrender ourselves to. And this is really at the heart of our practice. It means we coming into this world as human beings, have to fully take responsibility for us being in this world, just by ourselves, actually. I mean, that's what it comes down to. As much as we want to blame our parents for our problems, or somebody else, or some other thing, it just doesn't work. It just doesn't work. If you hang on to blaming, your life just isn't going to work. So you got to come down to this point where there's no excuse. I have to take full responsibility for my life right here, right now. Everything. And he says, this is the point we have to constantly surrender to. That all of our pain and suffering is coming out of our own body and mind. We have to constantly surrender to that. Of course, that's not so easy to do because sometimes we want to fight against that. When you see a knot, before you start to analyze it, surrender yourself to the whole world and vow to use your life for the sake of others. Now, this is how, because in a certain kind of way, that's the only thing that works. If we're here just for our own self, to our own self-infatuation, for our own greed, to get ahead, our life just doesn't work very well. Then open yourself and accept that knot with warm-heartedness. Handling a knot like this, you take the best care of the knot and work on it in the realm of the whole world. Find that the knot comes into your life and you come into the knot's life without any gap. When knots are not separate from you, knots turn into Buddha. This might be hard for us to believe, but it's true. Whatever difficulty we have, and he says, before you start to analyze it, basically, just settle yourself in that knot. And that means in your pain, the pain, these knots, that we've created, even though they were there to protect us. They were created to protect us at a certain point in time against something we felt was harming us. We need to go in deep into that knot and not create any separation from us in that knot, which means you have to settle yourself very deeply into the pain of being alive in this world. Just be there. Not analyze it. You're just there experiencing it. Just that pain. Nothing else. Not analyzing, not thinking about it. You're feeling the pain in the body. And this is true. I've experienced it myself. That pain turns into Buddha. If you just feel it deeply, all the way through. By the practice of accepting a problem and cultivating it as a flower in the sky, in other words, as Buddha, very naturally, your mind is soft and kind. Your heart is patient, gentle, and forbearing. Without this basic attitude toward human beings and the human world, you cannot deal with the ugly and miserable aspects of human life. So there are ugly and miserable aspects of being alive in this world, but we can't deal with them. They will overwhelm us. So accept all kinds of knots with compassion. Deal with everyday life with compassion. Then you can be patient. Try to always be mindful of your great original Buddha nature. In other words, try to maintain the pure energy arising in the incipient moment and try not to forget it. So that means that in the beginning, we said these incipient moments are happening constantly, but we don't notice them or we forget them. So the practice is to keep noticing them, cultivating them, paying attention to just the incipient moment that's arising out of pure energy of life. Then you can work on a problem in the small scale of the human world. But if you recognize that you are stuck in the second moment, the third moment, or the millionth moment, so it can go on for a long time, a million moments. Now, maybe a million moments is actually just a second or two, but it could be for quite a long period of time. But we recognize, okay, we're stuck there. I'll go back for a moment and remember when I listed all those things, that the Buddha said and Katagiri Roshi said, that long, long list of all the things that could be a knot. What Buddha says about each of those things, he says, he's talking to one of his disciples, Anya, and it's quite moving, but I can't I can't go into that right now because it's another long story. In any event, he's saying, "What did I do when I saw this inertia come up, this sloth and torpor?" Because he says, "I experienced all this. I experienced all these things." He's telling his disciple because his disciple is saying, "Yeah, we're doing really well here. It's a small group of three, a sangha, and they're working really, really well and harmonious together." And again, it's a very, very moving story how they take care of each other. Very practical. Like somebody, when the latrine is full, someone goes empty, and they're all working together very harmoniously. But still, something's missing. This is what the lead disciple is saying, and Buddha addresses that with these knots. So Buddha says, how did he deal with this? He says, sometimes, like if it's sloth and torpor or excessive energy or something like that, he says, sometimes I would have to work with it the whole day, a whole day. And they said, not even that. Sometimes I'd have to work with it all night. And he says, not even that. Sometimes I have to work with it with a whole day and a whole night. So, so, you know, that's good for Buddha, but for some of us, it might be a week or two, or maybe even a years to untangle some of these knots. Just go back to cultivating your pure energy. This is called mindfulness practice. That's why we're just constantly coming back to the moment we're in, being mindful of it. Then those incipient moments, pure energy of life will arise. And try not to forget them. Try to just keep cultivating them. When you take care of knots with the spirit and heart of your existence, very naturally, one by one, each knot is loosened. Sometimes, if you get to one thread, then two, three, or four, all of a sudden they are untangled. So, as simply as you can, accept the knots softly, gentle, with kindness and generosity, and take care of them patiently. Patience is working on the knots one by one with a calm mind, stability, relaxation, and assurance. Through handling all the aspects of your human life with kindness and forbearance, you can touch the core of your life where you experience deep communion with others. By touching the core of the life of all beings, you can communicate Buddha's teaching to others and help all beings. This is the Bodhisattva's attitude toward human life. I'm going to just reference one other passage from Dogen about what he says about knots. Okay. All Buddha Tathagatas who directly transmit inconceivable Dharma and actualize supreme perfect awakening have a wondrous way, unsurpassed and unconditioned. Sitting upright, practicing is the authentic gate to the unconfined realm. Although this inconceivable Dharma is abundant in each person, it is not actualized without practice and not experienced without realization. All Buddhas continuously abide in it, but do not leave traces of consciousness in their illumination. Sentient beings continuously move about it, but illumination is not manifest in their consciousness. The concentrated endeavor of the way I am speaking of allows all things to come forth in awakening and practice. All inclusivity, inclu inclusiveness, inclusivity with detachment. Passing through the barrier and dropping off limitations, how could you be hindered by nodes in bamboo or knots in wood? So that's actually saying the same thing. Because if you think back on Buddha's day, they saw knots in bamboo, or what is it? Nodes in bamboo and knots in wood. They saw those things. And bamboo and wood were used constantly for everything practical. And they couldn't, you had to make, you couldn't let a node in a bamboo like say, oh, this is no good. You have limited amount of bamboo around, so you got to make use of it. So you find ways to work with it. And the same with knots and trees. And of course, what we see with the crafted woodworker is sometimes they can use knots to make the wood even look more beautiful. If they can use it. But also, Dogen's not talking just about the physical. He's talking about the nodes in bamboo and the knots in wood as being inside of ourselves, things inside of our bodies and minds that we perceive as imperfect nodes and undesirable knots. So that's what they said. And that's what I'm saying today, and I'm done talking. Unless there's something that brings something up in you, and we can talk about that. First thing is, do you believe me? Is this true? Is this true? Okay, Joker's got his thumb. Mary's got his thumb up. The rest of you look doubtful. Okay, John, so David, okay. What about you that haven't raised your thumb? Or we could go back to those who have, and how does this strike you as confirming? Shinko, Joku, can you mute yourself? A little sound is coming through. Yeah, okay, thank you. Shinko, you had your hand up?
Yeah, I want to thank you for your Dharma talk. It's been just marvelous on so many levels. I didn't raise my hand because sometimes I'm, believe it or not, a little shy about doing things like that, raising my hand. But I did have a question in the middle of your Dharma talk, and it was a phrase you used about, I don't know, 8 minutes ago or so, that the pain becomes Buddha.
Oh, mm-hmm.
And I'm wondering if you could elaborate on what you mean by Buddha in that context. What are you trying to say? Is it like the pain becomes, oh, everything's okay, I'm wonderful, or what?
Well, not quite like that. I wouldn't put it.
Well,
I wouldn't
that's
put it that way. Otherwise, I don't think you would agree with it.
well, that's my question. And what did Katagiri, I think me was it Katagiri?
I think those were my own words. Pain becomes Buddha, but I don't think he said it, at least not here. But I believe he's alluding to that. It means when we go into these places in ourselves that are quite painful, and just experience the pain. Because the way I look at it myself is kind of a knot. Like I said before, when we could have tiny, tiny little traumas in our life or big traumas, when we're, anytime before now. It could be when we're tiny little human beings or adolescence or any place along the line, and something that we feel harmful comes toward us, we need to protect ourselves from it. It's our human deal, especially when we don't know any other way to do it. But I think what happens is we get kind of knotted with that, and it has an impression on us that kind of gets us a little stuck, thinking, if anything like that happens again, I know what to do. But we didn't have all the resources to deal with, those that kind of onslaught of trauma that we went through. So sometimes if we can go, this is another way to deal with kind of traumatic events from our past, just to sit down and let ourselves feel that trauma or the pain. And at least now we have other resources, namely practicing this way, where that actually I think it's absolutely necessary. We have to go into that deep pain or trauma of our lives before we can experience any kind of liberation or joy that's authentic and pervasive. If we have that pain and trauma and it's lingering, and of course, I'm not saying, of course, for myself that it's all finished. I would never say that. But we just have to keep working to find that place where we got hurt and go into it, and it'll open up. It will evolve into something else. um, I don't know if that's much of an explanation, but
No,
and when I say something else, I mean something that's not entangling for us. It actually allows us to communicate more deeply with other human beings and ourselves. That's what I mean. And that's kind of what I mean by Buddha. Again, when, there's many, many stories where we say, don't make Buddha into something. So,
no, I mean, thank you for your answer. Very, yeah, almost sophisticated, if you will. But I mean, that isn't, if I understand, if I'm really to bring the teachings down to what, an elevator speech?
from what? Elevation?
No, if I bring the teachings and the practice down to an elevator speech,
Oh,
like,
elevator speech.
well,
Elevator. I
this
thought
short,
okay.
that's the whole point of practice. That's the whole point of sitting.
It is.
And so John, my husband, has often repeated to me what Katagiri told him when John first walked into MZMC. Just sit.
Yeah.
Just sit.
Hmm.
And in the sitting comes hopefully comes the present moment,
Hmm.
comes the awareness of the present moment with everything that can be presenting itself,
Hmm.
with acceptance, true kind of open-hearted acceptance of everything that is presenting itself.
Hmm.
And then, and then with that open heart, because the heart is open, and this is kind of the ideal, by the way, because the heart is open, it turns into compassion for oneself and what is arising or what has arisen. and it lays this is my understanding, it lays the foundation for the next step that we hopefully are taking in mindfulness.
Mhm.
So thank you for the explanation. I just wanted to hear what you had to say. And now you've all heard mine.
Well,
And I'll turn off my microphone.
okay. Well, and then I'll add one of my own comments to that is when we say just sit, and you say whatever happens in the present moment, what is going to happen is a lot of pain is going to come up, a lot of pain.
Yep, yep.
That's inevitable.
That's kind of the purpose. Well, not the purpose, but
I
yeah.
mean, not only pain, also, it can happen, joy, happiness,
Yeah,
elation,
yeah.
but those are all things
Well,
that
you get the whole
this
gamut.
is that's it, don't get too excited about it because it's gonna disappear. But also the same with the suffering and the difficulties that are coming up. Because when we sit and we work, we're making effort to stop the analytical mind,
Yep.
it's just constantly evaluating this and that and me and you and trying to make sense out of all this world and pain. That's it. When that settles down, something from deeper in our life starts to arise. But first we have to settle down all that analytical stuff going on. And then the deeper stuff that comes up, well, it might be joy, happiness, but it might be pain and suffering too.
Mhm.
So we just continue to sit through it, whatever it is, with it. So you said it, whatever arises, we're just there with it,
Right.
not trying to make it go away, make it disappear, trying our best to get rid of this thing. It's bugging me. Something like that.
Well, thank you.
Thank
Uh,
you.
a
Thank
nice
you.
exchange of thoughts. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Mary, I think I saw your hand go up for a second.
Yeah, thank you. I and thank you, Shinko, also for your discussion there and the Dharma talk. Dokai, as usual, it's always, I mean, yeah, it's good to hear your words. I really appreciate it. So I have to comment. I love the knot idea.
Mhm.
It's fantastic. So I'm gonna in my life, um, this is what your talk brought out to me. In my life, the trauma, the really big, shocking losses, the big stuff, those maybe they're not. Those illuminated, I think, for me, sort of it showed me the way. It was sort of the teacher for compassion,
Mhm.
love, kindness, because it is like it shocked everything
Mhm.
out of the way.
Mhm.
It's the everyday wear and tear that is really difficult for me.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
not the traumas that were those I look back at and remember
Mhm.
um, when I'm dealing with the everyday disappointments, irritations. I love what you said about beings. It's to remember the true traumas, the losses that really I could really dig deep in.
Mhm.
So I don't know. I think if you can survive trauma, then yeah, it's a good teacher.
Mhm.
That's my comment. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yeah, Katagiri Roshi often would talk about a big shock, the big shock, which probably for a lot of us, the big shock will disintegrate all of our previously held values and thoughts about, how we think existence is or should be, or the big shock will just wipe that out. And you basically will say something like, I don't get it. I don't know what life is anymore, And a lot of time it's very painful, the big shock. So then we start re-examining our lives. And we're not fond of those big shocks because they hurt so bad. So because it hurts so bad, we're not anxious to have it happen again. So we start shifting our way of life, our way of thinking, our way of being at its core. The bigger the shock, the bigger we're going to start re-examining our values. And yeah, you're right. The kind of and while the big shock will like level us out and maybe not make us even functionable for a certain period of time where we can't even function. Still, the daily events, they're not different. They're just a little smaller, or maybe a whole lot smaller, but they're still related to that same big shock. Like, I'm guessing you've had the experience of someone kind of maybe getting angry at you or something, and you said, "Where did that come from?" It's like those are the things that are the hardest. Like, what did I do? What happened? So that's like, it's kind of a big shock, but not as big as those other gigantic ones. But they're related, completely related. And then there's the little tiny ones where just every day this kind of irritation about what happened today in the news or this, that, or whatever. They can be tiny ones, but they're also related. And we just have to be mindful of, try to be mindful of that irritation when it's arising. That's, a continuous practice. And if we see ourselves becoming more and more irritated, pay attention to that. Pay attention to that. Is that okay? Okay. Well, we're down to our last 5 minutes. Yeah, John. And you're muted.
There we go. So I think it was earlier in your talk, and the phrase I remember is, and I don't even know if you said it this way, but whatever happens, you own it. In other words, it's you, it's yours.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the situation that happened. It's not somebody else that did it. It's you.
Yeah.
And that to me was like, or is a thought that that I will be thinking about for a long time.
Yeah.
It's tough. That's the tough piece, because you
Yeah.
don't blame anybody. You don't blame yourself. It's just, here we are. It happened.
Well, that's basically it.
Yeah.
If we really think about it, I mean, we can understand it, because say we get really angry at another person. Now, that's not an uncommon thing. I think we all relate to that. But the anger itself is in you. It's a coming out of you.
Right.
not from the other person.
Yeah.
The feeling of anger is in your body, in your mind.
Yeah.
That's where it comes from.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it doesn't come from outside. It might, be precipitated by events but what we know and come to realize is all of that is inside. So we can sense a little bit when we're getting irritated about something. And right from the start, we can say, this is my irritation.
Yeah. Yeah.
That is a way then we can deal with people who are angry with us and not get angry ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a tough one. I mean, in
It
terms
is
of,
very tough. It's
yeah.
very tough.
Yeah.
That's why Katagiri says it's not so easy.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay.
Well, thank you, everybody.
Yep.
We have perfect timing. We have 5 more minutes. And thank you very much for everybody's sharing, as well as your talk, Dokai. So, how do we close? First of all, just a reminder that we have a number of events coming up. The one that's coming up this week is led by Mark and his wife Melissa. It's called Naturally Awake, and there's still room to register for it. I'm an old fan of Mark's and some of the practices that Melissa reads. So if you're looking for refreshment, or you just think it might help with one of those knots, I urge you to register. There's still time. Our
Not
cooks,
too much more time.
not too much, no.
We sort of have a deadline by tomorrow. So get
Shopping
inspired
happens.
today. Get inspired today.
In any case, and the other thing that's coming up that Hokyoji's putting on is in August, we'll have the Jewel Mirror session, which includes Daigaku from St. Louis and Ray-Ren from Wisconsin, and is it's just always a nourishing event. So I urge you to consider coming. After that, I think I don't have anything else much to say except, as always, we both appreciate all your contributions. We still have our, I'll call it summer fundraiser that is ongoing, and we have matching funds that are looking for a partner. So please consider talking it up to other people you know, as well as if you've not already been able to make a donation to do that. So with those reminders, let's close our session with the 4 remembrances, or the 4 vows. Here we go. Beings are numberless. I vow to free them. Delusions are inexhaustible. I vow to end them. Dharma gates are boundless. I vow to enter them. The Buddha way is unsurpassable. I vow to realize it. May your knots arise and be received with love and compassion.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye. Thank you.